Welcome back, extended ARVs. I know I said I was coming back today, but with the weather inside the house glitch still going on in my game, I haven't been able to play too much without getting aggravated and I just can't play. So, instead, I made this for you. I can't draw to save my life. But I can manipulate graphics a little bit to demonstrate my point, I think. This will be a world-building episode. I'm going to explain how I see my Sims world working from the location and planet to the lore I've created in my head because EA decided to give us very little lore in this edition of The Sims. In this section we're going to talk about how I see the actual world they live on function. Starting with, the planet. Simarth. It's a plumb bob-shaped planet located somewhere in the Simverse. Simarth is in the same solar system as Sixam and Bachu. This planet functions nothing like our Earth or the universe in which we, humans, exist. Each of the faces of the plumb bob is a different district. They're all connected by a light-speed train that runs the equator of the planet. This enables the Sims to be able to quickly travel from district to district with ease. The districts each have their own ecosphere which allows them to have their own weather environments, though they all share the same global climate. The planet's rotation around their solar system keeps the seasons lined up, and due to the fact that there is no tilt to the axis, the northern and southern districts are in the same season. The destination worlds and hidden lots are connected via portals. Salvadorida is the mainland portion of Solani and Granite Falls is the outskirts of Henford-on-Bagley. The only way to get from district to district is via the train or one of the portals, therefore, occasionally a new stop opens up. Ravenwood was the most recent stop and soon Nordhaven will be opened up. Hope this makes sense. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. On Simarth, magic is real and in no way hidden. Which probably explains why time traveler, Emmett, doesn't bother hiding who he is. We're going to go over the occult districts in this section. The Forgotten Hollow District stop was created first. Vampires are from here. The eldest among them, Vladislav Strahd, portrays himself as a distinguished elderly gentleman. He founded Forgotten Hollow and doesn't want Sims to mistake him for the youth most vampires appear to be. He's a well-traveled Sim and older than any other Sim in this particular mirror universe of Sims. Vladislav stalks Sims where they sleep. Sometimes he accidentally turns Sims without realizing it but doesn't seem to care. He and his fledgling, Maribel Smith, used to have great fun doing this together. Then came the night they crept into the Vador home. Teens, Caleb and Lilith slept soundly in their home while their parents were away. The couple crept into their rooms and awoke them via their vampire powers, turned into their dark forms right in front of them and then drained the both of blood. Maribel disappeared soon after that. Vladislaus was beside himself. Lonely and isolated, he found a few Sims that were lonely like himself, so he brought them into his home and taught them how to use the dark forces that he was able to wield with his vampiric nature. This is how spellcasters were created. The spellcasters utilized the forces differently from Vlad. Each found a different discipline: mischief, untamed, and practical. These disciplines each helped Vlad and the spellcasters in their own, different ways. When the spellcasters started having families of their own, they needed a place to go that wasn't as dark as Forgotten Hollow. The three sages made a pact with Vlad that each generation a Sim from one of the sage families will be sent to him in order to repay him for teaching them the art. Vlad not only agreed to this deal but also helped them create the Glimmerbrook district. Shortly after, the three sages combined their powers to create the realm of magic, where a sage leader from each discipline is always there to bestow their wisdom on young spellcasters. Next up is the Moonwood Mill district, home of the werewolves. Some of the spellcasters felt that they could harness the moon to become more powerful. These spellcasters became known as the Order of the Moon. They'd practice calling upon the moon every month during the full moon. Eventually the moon granted her blessings and allowed them to shift into werewolves on the full moon. Once they got a good control of their power, they became able to shift at will. When the Solani district opened up, the Sims that lived here weren't just run-of-the-mill Sims. Many of these Sims would sprout a tail once their legs hit the water. The mermaids have been a part of the Solani area since before the islands existed. Friends with dolphins and other marine animals, these Sims are also able to call upon the rain to hydrate their bodies. There are also wild stories heard from the Strangerville district, enough that movies have been made about it. We do know that a species of Sims from Vix.Simulates crash landed there some time ago and that there's a laboratory inside of the crater that was created in that crash. Considering Vix.Sims live with Simarthlings just fine, we don't understand what the fuss is about. Perhaps we should explore this town more. Ravenwood is the newest stop on the train. Ghosts have always been around, but the residents of this district seem to have a closer connection with them. Considering this is the only district with graveyards and clubs dedicated to them, there's no wonder that extended family is how the Simernatural works. We all know of the famous families, the Landgrabs, the Goths, the Pancakes, Don Lothario, and the Calientes. Fans also know that when The Sims 3 happened, the timeline went backwards 50 years. We also know that The Sims 4 is set in its own timeline and that the lore is, well, lacking. So in this section we'll talk about my versions of those famous families. First up, the Pancakes. In the first game, the tutorial family consisted of Robert and Betty Newbie. These Sims witnessed a horrific crime and were sent to the Witness Protection Program. Robert became Bob and Betty became Eliza. Bob didn't mind giving up his life to come to Willow Creek and be a cook. Betty aka Eliza felt very resentful of this drastic change to their lives and often is seen taking it out on Bob. Next up are the Goths. Bella, or at least hints of her, can be found everywhere in the Simverse. In my version, Bella and Mortimer are very similar to Morticia and Gomez Adams. Though, the parallels aren't there with their children, Cassandra and Alexander. Cassandra is very awkward and spends most of her time with her violin. Alexander, on the other hand, is often out on adventures with his best friend Olivia Kim Lewis. In Oasis Springs we have the Landgrabs. Jeffrey, Nancy, and Malcolm. There's also Johnny. Nancy is the descendant of the land-grabbing Landgrabs. When she met Jeffrey, they accidentally got pregnant with Johnny and were forced to get married. Jeffrey took the Landgrab name because it just made the most sense. Jeffrey is a cop, which seems kind of skeevy considering who he's married to. Nancy is still very much part of her land-grabbing crime syndicate family. Having a cop as a husband has really paid off for Nancy. When Johnny grew up, he realized what was going on and left. Malcolm knows what's going on within his family and wants to continue in his mother's footsteps. He longs to be the next crime lord. And he absolutely becomes one. Finally, we have the sultry Springside lot. Katrina Caliente is the mother of Nina and Dina Caliente. Katrina met young Don Lothario at a bar and he convinced her to let him move in with her. Once he moved in, he met the daughters. Closer to his age, he decided to take his chances on each of the Caliente women. Eventually they all became pregnant with his child and they threw him out. His descendants are still found all around town today. In fact, descendants of all of the famous Sims can be found around the Arv clan. Let's look out for them in the upcoming episodes. Here we have the family tree. I can't believe we're already at 4 generations. I update it every couple of months or so, not as often as new family members are added, but often enough that adding in new Sims isn't overwhelming, so there's a few new babies it seems. Let's start with Blythe's family. Blythe is Tam and Anya's eldest child. She married Lorio on her own after dating a few other Sims and found herself pregnant with Andrew. At some point I started experiencing a glitch where children would just disappear. I don't know why, but it happened. I lost Andrew this way, and when Lorio died, which was before I actually realized Andrew was gone, I lumped them into the same plot line and decided they both died. So, pregnant with her twins, Emilia and Ronnie, she moved in with her mom and Charlotte. Bridget was living in the bachelorette house at the time. Those kids were able to grow up. When Blythe died, Emilia adopted Blythe's stepdaughter, Isabella. Sure, her biological father is still around, but Isabella has only ever known the Kahananuis. Christopher has plenty of other children, he doesn't miss her. On to Beckett. Beckett was the youngest of the 3 B generation sisters. However, for some reason, Beckett aged into elderhood before Bridget, the middle child. Beckett has 6 children between 2 fathers, both deceased. Her high school boyfriend, Mark Lobo, and she never married, but they had 5 children together. They started shortly after she moved out and didn't stop even after he married another Sim. Nicole, Brian, Jordan, Jackson, and Louise are all Mark's children. Glenn, the newest addition, was Soren's child. Soren adopted all of her children, though, as they did end up with his last name eventually. I just haven't denoted that in this family tree. They have Anya's married name for some reason. Yet Nicole and Kale's children have Soren's last name. Ah. I need to fix this. Another day. Over to Bridget. So her first husband, Jeremy Noriega, she met while she was just dating for the plot but trying to focus more on her career. He was a whirlwind relationship. Within a week of their meeting they were rushing to the altar only for her to learn that he actually already had children with other women. One of those women went into labor at the baby shower for Charlotte. Later she discovered he was still sleeping with those women, so she broke it off with him. She also didn't go out of her way to ensure that he kept a relationship with their daughter. She went on the game show and met Damien, the love of her life, and they had 2 more daughters, Chase and Corey. Damien loves Charlotte as if he's her father. One day we discovered that Charlotte, Emilia, and Isabella weren't the only ones in that home, and we met Kendra. I like to imagine that Charlotte felt that she was loved so much by Damien she wanted to pay it forward. Because I have adoption off for that household. Let's pop into the neighborhood and see if there are new ARVs. Over in Ryder's Glen, aka the ARV neighborhood, we have the 5 lots dedicated to the ARVs. The compound, apartments, 2 single-family houses, and Beckett's compound. Beckett's eldest and middle kids have moved out, so Emilia, Isabella, Charlotte, and Kendra live with her in Glen. Over to the Cantor Cottage. Okay. Ryder's Glen Apartments. Looks like Kale and Nicole have had their second baby. They live in a large apartment. I want to say it has 5 bedrooms, I really should have labeled them. Oh wow, I didn't even know that Ingrid was pregnant. We don't actually see much of her and Brian. We'll absolutely have to visit really soon and meet the new babies. They have a 3-bedroom. Robbie is still alone, he's in a single-room apartment. There are 3 empty ones. I'm likely going to take Louise, Jackson, and Jordan from this house and move them into those 3 empty apartments, which will motivate me to get them furnished if not fully decorated as the other ones are. Well, that brings us completely up to date, or at least as close to up to date as I have footage of. Please, EA, fix the in-game weather. Well, extended family, I hope you enjoyed this little look into the way I see the world. Of course, you can see your world however you think it is, this is just the way I see mine. Thank you so much for watching. I'm not sure when Season 3 will be out, honestly. Now that March is here, I've got a lot of work to do in the garden, I have a road trip planned in the summer, this stupid weather bug won't go away. I'm honestly not sure when I'll find the time to play and edit again. But when I do, I'll be sure to post again. Thank you all so much for watching.
Dag.